Hey, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new season of Digging into the Pet Industry. I am Nancy Hassel from American Pet Professionals. We are airing live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So, wherever you are watching from, thank you so much for watching. And if you're listening to this on a future podcast episode, thank you so much for listening. I'm really pleased to introduce you to our next guest, APP member Kevin Bauer of Furvor. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Hey, Nancy, doing real well. Thanks for having me. Super excited to kick off your next season today. So
Yay.
excited to chat with you all things Furvor.
Yeah, I'm excited to introduce you to my audience because we met at the Pet Connect in LA in December, and I had never seen a product like yours before. So you since have joined American Pet Professionals. So we're so excited to have you as a member and welcome you to the show and talk about your product and how it came about. It's a pretty interesting story. So here on Digging into the Pet Industry, we'd like to, dig in. So I know it's corny. Can you tell our viewers and listeners what your background was before getting into the pet industry? What did you do before the pet industry?
Yes, I'm one of these crazy new entrants into the pet space, and so Nancy, I obviously I couldn't be more excited to be part of your organization now because I do need the help. I do need the community. But so first time in pet, first time in CPG, first time really as an entrepreneur.
Wow.
And so I'm in my early 50s. I spent the first 30 plus years of my career a mix between finance and doing fancy, maybe Wall Street things, or they sound fancy, and then helped operate business models for companies, for different investment groups for about 20 years. And so I've been an operator most of my career. Love it. Love taking ideas, love taking businesses and helping them through their next growth phases. But this is my first time taking an idea and blowing life into it and trying to get it off the ground.
Yeah, that's so cool. So now you're seeing the completely different side of it, right? Like, whereas your expertise in finance and investing and all of that, you were able to guide people that way. But now you're like, oh, okay, this is the other side of it. It's a whole different story.
Yes, I think you think that you're prepared when you have a long operating career
Yeah.
and you know what it takes to run companies with a lot of people and team building and all the intricacies, like just managing established companies. But they are so I think fundamentally from the early days of entrepreneurship. Like there's a business here at Furvor. It took us 2 years to create it,
Yeah.
but those early days of I think what it takes as an entrepreneur to really want to birth an idea and the conviction and grit, all the things that you kind of read about, what it takes is a lot different than when you're stepping into to take over an established company.
For sure. For sure. And I love that you have that background because it really gives you insight to what it is on the other side for that. So tell us a little bit about Furvor. I know it's a mealtime topper for dogs. It's what you have as your website, but it's newer to the pet industry and you're closing in on what, 2.5-year anniversary. I know
Yes.
it seems like a long time to you, but that's such a young company to the rest of us, right? But it's still a long
Yes.
time when you're working on it. What made you want to create a product like this?
Yes, I think well, I won't speak for all of us, but for most of us, most entrepreneurs in the pet space, I'd say are positively crazy pet people. For us, like we love dogs.
Yes.
They've been part of my life, since I can remember. But then they've been part of our family since we've had our kids for 20 plus years. And so we're an active outdoor family. And so our dogs do all sorts of adventures, whether that's camping or hiking or biking or skiing. Our dogs are with us. And so, so this idea really came from those outdoor activities. We spent a lot of time, have a little cabin in the kind of the middle of nowhere in Idaho. It was a classic hike with my two boys. It's warmer than it should be. Father and son, me and Carson are having our perfect snack and our perfect hydration drink for a break. And we're kind of looking down at our dogs when your dogs are starting to overheat and they don't want, or nor should you give them any form of solid food. So you're giving them liquid hydration.
Yeah.
And it was just the innocent conversation between a 13 or 14-year-old and a dad, like, why is there not a liquid on the market that's synonymous, kind of like with Gatorade. Gatorade for
Yeah.
people. Why is there not a Gatorade for dogs at times when you need to deliver nutrition in a liquid format for your
Yeah, I
pup?
love that. And that hydration, because a lot of times if you give too much water to the dog, it could make them sick, right?
Right.
I've seen that with my old dog Max here. If we were hiking and he had too much water, he might throw up a little bit from it. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. And so that little idea, took me and Carson to our garage and a kitchen, thinking about different ways to make a liquid that was doing maybe more than just hydrating. So a liquid that was doing something when it came to like just powerful nutrition. We've lived in Southern California for plus 20 years. So we've seen bone broth come to even the coffee shops for people,
Yeah.
where you can get a cup of bone broth hot, like a hot tea.
Yeah.
And it's in a lot of shops still here throughout Southern California. And so it's bone broth in different ways, collagen in different ways, protein from bone broth in different ways is kind of weaved into our own eating habits and style as a family. And so our thought was, we saw some of the bone broths coming to market for dogs, but we just didn't think that they were delivering on the nutrition promise. And
Hmm.
could we do something better? Could we do something different? Like, for all the same benefits you can get as a pet parent, could we deliver and create something first of a kind for our dogs? And so that's where all the hard work and research went for about
So
15 months.
So 15 months in developing it. Okay, so what is different about, I know what's different about Furvor, but what is different about Furvor for people that are listening? Like, when you see traditional bone broths in most places now, what makes you guys different and stand out? Because I remember when you showed me the bottle, I said, "Oh," like that was my, first reaction. So tell us a little bit what's different about it.
Yeah, so your traditional boxed or soft pack bone broths are largely pre-diluted, and increasingly, probably over the last 5 years or so within pet, like that percentage of water in those cartons or those soft packs has started to climb from low 90s to mid 90s to now, like, some of my favorite brands are on average like 97 to 99% water. Like,
Wow.
at some point, I think it's okay just to say, look, they're just flavored water,
Right.
right? So there's a bone broth flavor to
Hmm.
that water. They're not really focused on a nutritional impact. And so, ours, I just had our green version, which is our sort of advanced mobility version, but there's sort of a large size and a small size. But like, everyone, like, when you see it right away, like, hey, I've seen that bottle before. Like, is that a ketchup bottle? Is that a
Right. The
barbecue
sweet. Yeah.
sauce bottle? Is it, what is that? It looks
Yeah.
familiar. And it's it sits just like this on your shelf top or in your fridge. And it looks exactly like, it looks like a caramel sauce. It looks like a barbecue sauce. And so, like,
Yeah.
what took us 15 months, and we don't get all the credit here in our garage. We had a fantastic R&D partner, who's a world leader in making stuff like this. And we created this caramel sauce looking bone broth that really squeezes out a lot of that water that's making it not nutritious for dogs.
Hmm.
And when we squeezed it out, we did it with vet nutritionists, where we wanted to make sure to create a shelf stable caramel sauce looking bone broth for dogs that you can use as a topper for food time, that it was going to have the right nutritional profile. And the big piece is, shelf stable products often really load up on salts, different kinds of salts, even other than sodium.
Yeah.
And our view was, like, we really want to focus on that. Everyone's very salt conscious for their own
Hmm.
personal health as the pet parent, but we also wanted to make sure we were designing something that was right for the system, for dogs. And so the 15 months, I think that was a tricky piece, balancing the palatability, but also sort of the vet science to make sure that this was good from puppy stage to late stage.
So you could bring that on a hike, but you could basically put it in your dog's food, correct? Is that like the meal topper part of it?
Yeah, so I'd say there's the fun story from me and Carson, almost 4 years ago now, on that hike, where we really thought that the market was ready to talk about like a Gatorade for dogs. But
Right.
I would say, Nancy, and you and I've chatted a little bit about this, like, everyone, the greater market is thinking about just how they can maybe do mealtime differently for the pups. And
Hmm.
so, if you're doing dehydrated foods or kibble foods, which is still the vast majority of the market. And thank God
Yep.
there's a lot better options out there now for us
Yep.
as pet parents. There's obviously a trend to be adding some moisture at mealtime, and bone
For
broth is
sure.
a great additive to do that. So typically, I'd say 75% of our customer base is they'll squirt a little bit on top. You add a little bit of water from your tap. You don't need to even mix it. Like it'll dissolve out just based on contact with water. And all of a sudden you get this bone broth gravy. It'll look thicker, darker than that traditional box bone broth.
Right.
And that's 75% of my community trying to think about like, how do they do mealtime differently? I've got active pet parents who are probably my most vocal community, but they only represent probably about 25% of my overall community. And those
Yeah.
are the folks that do use it like Gatorade. You squirt a little bit in a bottle and you shake it and you use it as a squirt bottle, or you make a bowl of it before or after, sometimes during, if it's a really long exercise. And they're thinking about how to pre-hydrate and post-hydrate their dogs with liquid and with nutrition as fast as they can in the morning when they feel it's the right time to pre-hydrate. And then when they're back at the car or back at the trailhead or back at home, and it's still not the right time to be giving your dog solid foods, but could I deliver water and nutrition into their system, super bioavailable,
Yeah.
that can do something different for them?
I love that. I noticed on your website that you did have that example, and I didn't think of that, until I looked at your website. I was like, oh, that's a really good idea because I'm a stickler for when I do take my dog for a walk. I don't if I know we're gonna go for a couple mile walk like after in the afternoon, he doesn't get fed because normally he eats early in the morning and then he's an early bird special kind of dog. He likes his food at 1:30. But if we're going for a hike at like 4 or just a regular couple mile walk, I do not feed him because he will tend to throw up or have bile if we're walking, and it's just a little tiny bit warm out, not even hot. So I wait until
Yeah.
we come home. So that would be a really good option to give him that energy ahead of time or bring it with us versus worrying about him trotting along and then making himself sick. So, especially for like a deep chested dog, right? I don't know if people even think about that. So I love that you have that on your website. That's a really great option for people that are active.
Yeah. And I forget if I mentioned this to you, like we are, probably can't divulge all like who we're working with right now, but we're halfway through a research project with a preeminent, college level veterinary school that does a lot of testing with performance dogs. And
Oh,
we've been learning so much just in those studies. We'll wrap everything up this fall, but just talking to some of like the breeders, trainers of, let's say, the elite class of performance dogs of Iditarod dog sled teams, and this concept of how do they think about hydration of parts of the food pyramid. And when you talk to breeders and trainers where dogs are like obviously active a lot, whatever,
yeah.
however you define that, there's like, if you don't get hydration right, like, which is the bottom rung, the most
Hmm.
important rung in your dog's food pyramid, like nothing else matters. And so when I had talked to someone, they said, hey, like this concept of bone broth as a bait bowl, as a liquid hydrator for dogs that could also deliver on nutrition, like it's been happening as long as the Inuits have been using sled teams,
Yeah.
because they wanted to make sure their dogs were hydrated going from town A to town B. It was okay if their dogs had a stomach issue, maybe went on a hunger strike for a day, but if they weren't hydrated, there's a chance that they could always even push them to the limit to exhaust them, to kill them.
Yeah.
And so this concept of like bait bowls and hydration, it's fun now finally having access to some of these world-class breeders and trainers. Like, hey, we make our own concoctions. Like we like experiment all year long to get hydration right for our dogs when we know that when we're being active. And there's like, what's neat is like, you didn't even know you created this off the shelf, like bait bowl product for crazy active pet parents. Like, and you created it. And so
Yeah.
that's where a lot of this testing is going for that community of mine, which is, again, whether it's hiking, biking, camping, whatever, of just like at times your dog needs to be hydrated and be giving nutrition differently.
I love that. It's so important. And I just think the sporting dog community is a lot different than the average everyday dog parent, but those dogs still need that nutrition, right? So, and I know bone broth has gained in popularity over the years. I know that it helps with dogs' inflammation, with their joints, dogs that have arthritis, all of that. So, Can you tell us a little bit about the products that you have? I know you have a few different types of products. I know that's all the same type of product, but different formulas,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, you got it. So we've got a base beef, a base chicken, and then that green bottle, the green bottle that I was showing earlier
Yeah.
is our base beef, but we kind of call it super boosted, but we've super boosted part of the amino acid profile
Okay.
as well as the already naturally occurring glucosamine and chondroitin.
Okay.
And we super boosted those areas for like a really an active dog community, an elderly dog community,
Mm-hmm.
the community that may have just any hitch or gait issue, mobility
Yeah.
issue. And so that formula, or green formula, is focused on mobility, joint, and muscle health issues.
I love
Um,
that.
and I'd say again, and you and I joked about this, I think in the past, um, like so why do dogs like want to get to the middle of the bone? You know, they're not doing it just for the fun of it, right? They want
Yeah.
to get to that marrow.
Yeah.
And I do feel like a snake oil salesman from time to time, like just the beauty of that marrow from protein, and
Hmm.
like not to try to overcomplicate, it is so dense, right?
Yeah.
And behind all that protein is what everyone knows, and collagen is the main protein in marrow and the main
Yeah.
protein in bone broth. But like what's really behind all that protein are these lovely things that not too many people talk about, are amino acids.
Hmm.
And you get all the 10 essential amino acids if you do bone broth the right way. And in our bone broth, we are loaded with protein. We're loaded then with those amino acids. And everyone's just like, well, hey, like, what is the one thing like your bone broth solves? If you do bone broth right, since it's delivering on so many of those 10 essential amino acids that your dog needs, like
Hmm.
it manifests itself in so many neat ways. I'll often get the first email of like, it's a skin and coat issue. And a lot of the pet parents just saying, hey, like, I can't tell you exactly how it looks different, but our dog's skin and coat
It's different.
is
Yeah.
different. And if you know it's making changes on the outside, then
Hmm.
I think the fun conversation is, well, then what is it doing on the inside? And
Right.
for sure, like the GI track of just what's required, and if you get the GI track and good health, you know that it helps with whole health after
Yeah.
that. And you can just go down the list. And so, and then people don't believe, like, oh my God, you're telling me glucosamine and chondroitin, which are obviously some of the most studied
Right.
components out there for mobility issues, like they're naturally occurring as well. I'm like, yeah, believe it or
Yeah,
not.
people don't realize that. You know, it's interesting as you're saying that. It's funny because I have always questioned for when products come out, products that I would never put on my dog, give my dog, because my first question, this is back when I was in my 20s and I had a Doberman and we did the same thing. We hiked everywhere, we went everywhere. And I would question to my friends, well, what is that doing to the inside of your dog's body if you're giving it to them internally, like to fight off, certain certain bugs and stuff like that. So
Right.
I just have always said, well, what is it doing? So it's the opposite. Like, how amazing is it that if you're doing good nutrition and good health for your dogs, right? What are they ingesting that is going to help them? And the same goes for us, right? If you're eating a healthy diet, it's going to reflect in how you feel and how your body is. So I am all about that. I absolutely love it. Do you have anything coming up for cats for the bone broth? Is that going to be in the pipeline?
Yeah, we're working on one of our just our base versions. We're working on our
Okay.
base products right now, adjusting the formula a little bit, working with some vet nutritionists just
Yeah.
um, to see if we can dial in for the cat community. And
Because they're going to ask if they're not already asking.
oh no, yeah, and I to be completely like, I'm getting more and more cat people around me. If that sounds funny,
Yeah. No.
I didn't grow up with cats, and so
Yeah.
I I need to understand that customer, that community, as well
Mhm.
as the support from the veterinary nutritionists
Yeah.
around me. But I'm pretty confident by end of year at the latest. I'd say that for the cat
Okay.
community.
That's
And
awesome.
so, and I think we're just trying to keep it as basic as we can. Like there's no fillers, there's no additives. What's really neat about this product, it's just super condensed bone broth. And then you
Yeah.
get, as a pet parent, get to decide if you want to, how you want to dial it up or dial it down based on dilution. Like
Right. And
you're in control.
what your dog's activity level is. If they're just a regular house dog and you go for a walk every once in a while, if they're a sporting dog, like I really think that's such a cool thing about it. So since you've been in the industry for 2.5 years, what has been your best achievement with Furvor so far?
Yeah, this may sound like a little hokey, but I'd say the fact that this was like a family idea
Doesn't sound
from,
hokey at all. I love that.
yeah, just from those early days. And I'll be on, like, the initial, when my wife and I sat down and said, "Hey, we're going to give this a shot," and the benefits of the impact of both my boys at that time in high school. Now they're both in college. Um, Whether we were a success or failure, and that can be defined, right, so many different ways. But
Yeah.
our view was it would never be a failure because it would show them just like how hard it is, right? How hard it is to go from like talking about it on your couch,
Right.
having it on the shelf somewhere, and whether
Yeah.
that's the virtual shelf online or in a store. And so I think just being so proud of, like, hey, this is still a small family business.
Yeah.
It's our baby. There's no outside capital. We're defining it and designing it along the way how we feel
Hmm.
it should be. And I think being able to show my two boys along the way how to navigate that process and be where we are at the 2 year plus mark just feels really good.
That's really cool. I love it. I love it. And that'll give them so much inspiration if they ever come up with their own product or help you develop more products over the years. So I love the play on words with your business name. What does that mean to your mission statement?
That was the early days. That was a classic family vote too, around a dinner table. And so I think that, and maybe it's we're a little bit more oriented to always active with our dogs, and so we always think about like just energy level, and we're doing things. And so um, to us, we were thinking about the fervor, right? The
Yeah.
excitement, the energy, for our pet family, for our dogs, and what we're doing, going out, we're exploring. And so this excitement of the bond between pet parent and their dog, and maybe just kind of living your pet's best lives, living your best lives with your pet.
Yeah.
um, and if our product can help out with that. And so that's when we started playing around with different words to convey that. We're like, holy smokes, I think we can do a play on fervor, F-E-R, right?
Yes.
E-O-R, and then just substitute the E with the U. And next thing you know, after a long dinner, we had the name.
That's awesome. I really love it. And I will tell you, for somebody that's been in the pet industry for over 20 years, the pet puns never get old because they will just come out of blue, out of nowhere. And I'm like, how did that not even thought of before? Just some of the
Right.
pet puns are hilarious. So
Yes.
I love the mission statement behind it and the play on words, but it's really more meaningful since it came from your family. So let me ask you this. With your product now, where have you grown the fastest? What platform? In-store, online, D2C?
Yeah, almost all our growth the last 2 years has been online,
Okay.
and a lot of that growth has been Amazon oriented.
Okay.
If you are a new pet brand coming into the industry, you really need to see if you have a product that has a product market fit in one of two places, and that's Amazon or Chewy.
Mhm.
And generally, Chewy wants to wait a little bit to
Yeah.
see who you are before bringing you on. So increasingly, um, right, those two behemoths, right, represent, pick the percentage, 75% of every
Yeah.
D2C sale relating to at least my
Wow.
category in pet. Um, you need to understand how you define success and see if you can be successful in one or both of those communities. But I think before you start branching out, so we are positively branching out. We, at the end of last year, coming into this year, we started doing some high end pet specialties. So the
Okay, that's
not
great.
big box, not big chains, and we just started working at the end of the first quarter with our first national distributor, and that's a distributor called VSI, and they
Okay.
have been fantastic. They hold my hand probably a lot more than they want, but understanding what it takes to work with a distributor. And we are just kind of working with our two first national retailers. We had a trial at the end of last year with Shields. So a lot of your
Okay.
Midwest listeners, they have a presence in California, but they're more Midwest, a little bit down
Okay.
into Texas. But a really cool 100-year-old family run mini version of a Bass Pro Cabela's.
Okay, cool. I love that. Yeah.
We went with maybe 6 or 7 trial stores, and we'll roll out to all their stores nationally here in the next month.
Wow,
Um,
congratulations. That's
and
amazing.
thanks. And that, I mean, they have been talking about an amazing partner for a emerging pet brand. They've been
That's
fantastic.
great.
And then if all goes well, we will have a trial with, a top 2 leading national pet retailer here at the end of the summer. And so that is very exciting to us as well, just to see, what it takes to not just put your product on your shelf, but work with some of these bigger players in the market and have fun and have success at it.
As you're rolling into retail stores, one of the pain points for a lot of pet product companies is having the retailers understand their product well enough so that they can educate their customers, the pet parents coming in the doors, right? So what tips can you give retailers to touch upon about Furvor when people are asking, what is this? How do I use it?
Yeah, and I'd say, and I know we've chatted about this a little bit. I was like, I have a first of a kind product, right?
Okay.
I don't have another Me Too bone broth. And if the store might be
Yeah.
carrying 2 or 3 brands that are maybe similar but slightly different, like that's not me. And so I do feel like the use of some of our shelf trays and shelf talkers and videos to the store owner and manager and team like I'm educating a lot, Nancy, and
Yeah, that's good.
it's not going to be done for me ever. I don't feel,
It
because
probably won't.
it's so unique. So I would say, and what's interesting to me is most pet parents believe in the concept of and they're curious in trying bone broth, but most pet parents out there, the rush of going to the store, right, of adding that new product in, aren't spending a ton of time looking at labels for maybe why one
Right.
brand is different than the other. And so if there's a bone broth already out there and they might be using that, I'll make something up, that treat or that kibble already, and then that brand launches
Yeah.
the bone broth, they'll generally just trust in that brand and grab that bag, right? Or grab
Yeah.
that box. And so for us, I would just say, if you can just get your store employees or the customer to pause for a second and just turn the label over and look at the top line. Protein is always the top line on the guaranteed analysis. And most bone broths are going to have 1% or less, so 1% plus or minus in protein. And ours is generally around 30%.
Wow.
And to me, like, that starts the conversation off with the customer then. So, hey, like,
Yeah.
this is not a little bit different. It's a lot different. It's not water. It's a caramel sauce. It's 30% protein. It's kind of like the 30-20, right, mixtures for the active dogs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's a great way just to start, like, hey, we don't have to overcomplicate this, but just looking at this one metric on the back of this bottle versus the back of the box lets you know how different from a nutritional density the two products are.
I think just squeezing it even visually into like a little cup, with those little plastic cups where you get like the ketchup at a place, right?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
showing the difference, right? It could be a visual thing for store owners to really do. We have one of our members has a raw food feeding store, and they did a bone broth pairing, which I thought was brilliant for a pet event. I couldn't go. I was so mad. They did that, I think, like a year ago. So that could be something your retailers could do, right?
Yeah.
And have that bone broth pairing. And it was just kind of like a fun pairing of wine and like farm to table type of thing. But they did it for dogs. So I thought it was a really great idea. So it could be something fun.
There's an eight store chain here in San Diego, Dirty Dogs. They've been great to me. They're one of my closest stores here, right around the counter, right around the corner. And they did puppuccinos last summer. It gets warm here, right, in California, in Southern California. And they're like, holy smokes, it does look like dark caramel sauce on top of
right on top of the
puppuccino. And so I do know in warm weather times or parts of the country, that just started to take off for us at the end of last summer. So I'll be curious if that comes back.
Or maybe Furvor popsicles.
Yes.
Freeze it instead. Oh my gosh, so you could do so many things. So, okay, what has been a pain point in your young company so far that you can touch upon?
I think that when you're launching, right, in any given day, any given week for sure, you're wearing different hats.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes it's more sales oriented. Some it's, admin back at office. Some you're a product manufacturer. I think that there's always the desire to go faster,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
faster from growth, and to kind of prove to yourself or to prove others around you just how well you're doing, right? Because it's a metric. It's something that you can
Yeah.
measure. But I would say if I think about year one, now year 2 plus, like I feel like there's a skill set, which I thought, by the way, it's interesting. I thought I already had it based on other companies I ran.
Right.
But as an entrepreneur, the skill set of getting manufacturing right.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, it's iterative, right? You don't get it right off the bat, and you're adjusting your partners
Yeah.
and you're adjusting your cost basis, and you need to be comfortable at times. I'd love the slogan of don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I
Mm,
think that needs to come up in your mind all the time
yeah.
when you're continuing to make these incremental adjustments with your product, because it can't be perfect at inception. As the entrepreneur,
No.
you're your worst
Yeah.
critic. But so I'd say that the manufacturing hat, just realizing
Yeah.
that it can be more difficult than you ever imagined. But if you
Mm-hmm.
get good at it, it's a great way to kind of create that moat or that defensibility of creating, unique products in this space.
Yeah, I think that's so true for anybody that is a young company. We have so many members of American pet professionals just in the like last 5, 6 years that are newer to the pet industry or brand new, bringing in a product to the space from all different areas. Yours is a bone broth, one might be a tech product, one might be a functional product, and they've all had manufacturing challenges. They thought the first time it was going to be when the prototype came, it was going to be the prototype or what they were going to use, and they had to go back a bunch of times. So I think anybody that's watching that has an idea for a product, don't let that like stop you, but also be prepared that it's not going to be the perfect, like you said, the first time, right? You have to
Right.
go back and forth. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that. What are you working with any veterinarians or vet schools for your product? I think you're doing something that's going to be finishing soon.
Yeah, so we're working with a program in Alaska. So it's a veterinary school in Alaska, and that's where all of my focus the last
Oh, with the sled dogs you were
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Okay.
And so that's our primary focus. I have, again, as most startups will know in the pet space, I do work closely with I'm trying to think, in any given quarter, probably 2 to 3 different veterinary consultants
Okay.
who can help me with a variety of issues, and
Yeah.
whether that might be with my 800 phone number, and if a customer calls in, may having like an issue with their dog and wondering if it's product related, or if and so I've got a vet who can jump on that phone with that customer just to kind of sort that out, or it's in product development and R&D, and helping me maybe
Yeah.
understand some of the research and studies out there. So um, I think maybe that's just it may at times feel like it's hard to write those consulting checks, but they're so invaluable
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
early years as you're trying to really launch and establish a new product.
Definitely, for sure, for sure. You can't I feel like you can't grow without that, and a lot of people struggle to try to do it on their own. So that fact that you're doing that is really fantastic. So your company also gives back and something that's really important to you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So this little pup here, that's Tally. So she just turned 4,
Oh,
is for sure the center of all of that. And I think about our give back platform a bunch. I think about when you are focused D2C and focused a bunch on Amazon and or Chewy. Yes, you're building your community, but it's really their communities, right? So as you're building your brand, it's hard to really um, shout it the loudest you can about our give back, if that makes sense. I can do it
yeah,
more effectively on my own site, but it's a little bit harder through these platforms when you're kind of a guest of the platform.
right.
And so that's a big focus for me. I think the second half of this year and then next year is just as we get a little bit more, a little larger, a little more visible. How do we make our platform seem a little bit more front forward as I'm
Yeah,
talking to my customers and perspective? But long story short, so that same son number 2 on that walk, a really just like uniquely tricky period of the classic teenage years,
yeah,
and I had 2 super unfortunate events back to back. I lost my nephew. My nephew took his life.
Oh,
And then really pretty close to that as well, we had 2 dogs. We lost 2 dogs, literally lost 2 dogs. We think to this day they were taken from us.
oh, geez.
And those back-to-back events, for a young teenage boy,
Yeah, it's a lot.
we didn't realize how much he was relying at that point on one of our 2 Britneys that we had at that point
Mm,
for how he was relaxing, how he was decompressing at
yeah.
the end of the day. And so that has a decent profile of ADD. I gave my son a strong profile of ADD. So as he's thinking about 1,000 things at the end of the day, in the meaning around 1,000 things, that dog, Henry, that old Brittany, was what allowed him to decompress. And so all of a sudden, Henry wasn't there. And we realized there was a big void in his life. And so
Mm,
thankfully, we figured it out. We started chatting with him. He decided that he wanted a new dog. We let him pick. He picked a Bernese Mountain Dog. He went through formal service training with her
oh, wow.
for about 9 months, through Next Step Service Dogs here in San Diego. We're still a supporter of them and their lead trainer, Gina Ascoldi. And just watching that transformation of that dog, knowing when Carson just needed him her at his side, and
Yeah.
how he would use her as that decompression blanket at night. And, at times, your son or daughter may need more than mom and dad, may need more than friends or his older brother. You just
Yeah.
need the unconditional love and support of a dog. And so
Yeah.
having seen that, our view was, and really when we decided to launch, it was Carson at the table saying, let's make people more aware of what these dogs can do.
Yeah.
He's always talked openly, like he feels like he's a little bit of a fraud because he was going through training at the school where veterans were getting dogs and they didn't have all their limbs maybe, or they
Yeah.
were really difficult reentries. Dad, I almost feel like I don't need Tally to the same level as they need their dogs. But he spent a lot of time kind of with that school and making really neat friends. And our view was, if we can just educate people a little bit more about the service dog community. Most of those programs are so vastly underfunded.
They
The
are. Yeah.
people running them are saints. And if we can just help, one more dog get matched to one more person and let that person live a richer life, then we're happy that we can do that.
Well, I love that outcome, and I'm really so sorry for the loss of your nephew and your dogs. It's really a tough situation, and the fact that you guys recognize that and were able to have your son get a service dog to help him move through that is really incredible. I always say that I still think we're just scratching the surface on what dogs can understand and do and be and all of that, right? Because I most of the time I'm like, my dog is so smart. I'm just like,
They're so
he understands every sentence you're
Yes.
talking. It's really nuanced. It's kind of crazy.
Yes.
And I just, I always say, like, maybe in another 20 years we'll look back and say, remember, we didn't know this about dogs, it's really, they're there for us for everything,
Yeah.
right? Everything we go through, and they're never judgmental and all of that. So the service dog organizations are, like you said, underfunded, and there's never enough people volunteering or puppy raisers or all the things. So thank you for doing that. I know that really, really helps. So any last advice for anybody that is new that's bringing a pet supplement to the market that you'd like to share?
No, listen. I would say, if you're if you're excited for doing it, don't hold back, right? I think
Yeah, yeah,
there's so many opportunities within pet right now.
yeah.
I think that as the entrepreneur, the old adage is absolutely true. There are some big players in the marketplace, but they are like aircraft carriers, right? They have a lot of power, but they move slowly.
Hmm.
And as an entrepreneur, you can come in as those smaller, right, the PT boats, and have a chance to outmaneuver for a period of time and help bring new ideas to market.
Yeah,
I'd say it's fraught with things of twists and turns and things that you didn't know of. So I think everything that you read about, grit and perseverance, and there's always sort of tomorrow,
yeah,
is very true in these
yeah,
early years. But generally, it's it's never as bad as you think, and it's never maybe as good as you think. But
Right.
I think that if you get satisfaction out of creating, being a builder of things, I think the pet space has a lot of really unique paths and opportunities, for years to come.
Listen, I love that because the small companies have developed things that have encompassed our industry, and you see a lot of the bigger companies now having to adjust because the pet parents want what the smaller companies are providing, right? So I've watched that a lot over the last 10 years. It's been quite interesting. So yeah, going for it for sure. The pet industry is a wonderful place to be. Excuse me. So, is there anything you'd like to add that I didn't ask you? Did I just ask you that? No.
No, listen, it's such an easy conversation. So I think you nailed it. Thank you for letting me just share my story. Like I enjoy this so much. I always wonder if I'm just not doing it enough. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to
You're
chat.
2.5 years young. Don't don't beat yourself up. The more you do that, of these, the more you'll get, just used to doing more and more. It's been a lot of fun having you on. If people are watching and want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so super. So we have our website, which is furvorpet.com. My email, if you want to just reach out to me, is super easy. It's just kevin@furvorpet.com. And if you're interested in trying our products, there's our website. We're obviously on Amazon. We'll be launching with Chewy here in the next couple of weeks.
That's so
And then
exciting. Congratulations on that.
yeah, super excited. And then again, a big shout out to the team at Shields, who's been so kind to us over the last year. And so if you're in the Midwest, all our new labels and products will be rolling out into those stores shortly as well.
I love it. Well, Kevin, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for introducing your product to our audience and letting everybody know what you've been doing. And I really appreciate you being here.
I appreciate it. Thanks again, Nancy. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you. For everybody else, come back same time, same place next week for the next episode of Digging into the Pet Industry. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday. Take care, everybody. Bye.